myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is an NUFC Matters special, and I'm delighted to welcome Gary Todd, the internationally acclaimed author of Annie's Boy. Got him on to promote his book and tell us a little bit about his life story. Gary, how are you?
Good morning, Steve. How are you doing?
Very good, mate. And it is good morning for you. We've had to set this up, and rather funnily, with your accent, which we'll come to, and we've been in touch. I, for some reason, thought you still lived in Scotland. You are actually on the other side of the world, in Australia.
Yeah, I'm in Sydney. Yeah, I've been there for 35 years.
Fantastic, mate. Great stuff. Okay, well, we'll come to that as we get towards the end of your story. The book, Annie's Boy, the link is in the description, is available on Amazon, and it is well worth anybody's money, this book, to be honest. It took me a while to read it once I was sent a copy. It's a coming-of-age story as seen through the eyes of a boy and his mum living in Scotland in the 1970s and 80s. And the description on Amazon tells you it's where fear, violence, and struggle was an everyday part of life. It's a story of hope and quiet courage and perseverance that'll take you on an emotional roller coaster that spans over 15 years of their lives and what they did to survive. Gary and his mother lived in fear at the intimidation and violence that came from his father at the age of 10, and he agreed to testify against his father in court to try and stop the ordeal from continuing. The book is a look at the tough and gritty life of Dundee, which is the part of Scotland Gary comes from, during the period. Annie's Boy certainly does seize the heart of every reader, and they struggle to put the book down as I did. So, Gary, tell us a little bit about those early days in Dundee.
Early days in Dundee it was obviously a struggle. I think it was just wasn't Dundee, Steve. I think that the whole of the UK was in that era, the 70s and 80s. You know, you had the miners' strikes. You had Margaret Thatcher was on the go, causing mayhem. There was a lot of unrest and in the streets, and obviously behind closed doors was a bit of tension with a lot of people. And it was a crappy time, but it was also for me it was also a great time as well, because the music was fantastic. I thought the best era of music. The soccer. Scotland was pretty successful in the soccer. There was a lot of good things as well, and I think that generation of people, they were very resilient, and they went on. A lot of people went on to do brilliant things just by being resilient and tough, and just because they went through all that. But I don't think it was just Dundee. I've asked many people since I've wrote this book. I've been talking to a lot of people. A lot of people have been good feedback on the book, and a lot of them have been telling me their story. And as I said as well to loads of people, everybody's got their own story. It wasn't just like poor me, and I never ever treated myself like that anyway. I always said, like, you just got on with it, But a lot of people have told me that story, and they've asked their own story, and some of them are worse than mine, believe me. But this is my story. It's me and my mum's story, and I decided to write about it and just to try and get it out there, because I think it's an important story to tell. But I do think it's a generational thing, living in, especially at the north of England and also Scotland at the time. But it was pretty tough. I used to see, I seen a lot of bad stuff. It's obviously in the book. Seen the miners begging for money at the shops, and I'd go down to just into the shops for a walk or so, and you'd see them begging. It was pretty bad to watch, hard to watch actually. But we had a lot of gangs as well. We had gangs in the schemes, and they all had the different coloured jerseys on, and you couldn't go into the scheme wearing a certain colour, or you just got battered. And it was pretty tough going. And these were like young kids up to grown men, like 30-year-old, 40-year-old men. and they'd heard about the Dundee gangs years ago, and their dads used to do it. So it kind of went on for their dads, passing on into their sons. And so we had a lot of things to contend with at that time, but my biggest worry at the time was obviously my dad. My dad was, he's a fairly violent character of a man. He was very charismatic, but he was also very violent. And that's part of our story. But Annie's Boys, for me, it's a story about hope, resilience, quiet courage. But it's like a love story, but it's a brutal love story. Yeah.
Tell us about your childhood and your early childhood, mate. I mean, what was it like living at home?
Well, myself and my mum, we lived in a council in the schemes, in the council flat, and we had first of all it was a flat, and then certain events happened that's in the book. We had to move for that flat, and then my mum managed to get a little council house, and then there was a few years of mayhem in that house, but it was very. When I was only like a kid, and I was a nervous wreck. The things that we went through together, all we had was each other, and the things we went through was like pretty bad. I wouldn't sort of want my kids to go through. My kids now, me and my wife have wrapped them up in cotton wool so much. It's probably not healthy, but I just wanted to be a better person than my old man was, and be a better father. And that's all I've done all my life, is to try and be a better person, because the stuff we went through was, he would smash your windows in the middle of the night. He came at my mum with a knife on a few occasions. I got battered a few times. It just certain. It was psychological stuff, mental stuff, and the physical stuff as well. But I'd say that in the end, the psychological stuff was worse than the physical abuse.
What kind of psychological stuff? What kind of psychological stuff are we talking about?
Well, he was my old man was a wheeler and dealer. He was always sort of getting in trouble. He was like tucking and diving, like the old Arthur Daly sort of type guy. And he was always buying and selling anything just to make money. And it was not unusual for him to come back to his house. He lived in a different house with us in the schemes, another scheme. And we'd go down there at the weekends. My mum would go down after her work, and I'd get on the bus with my mum and would trudge down the road. And the things that he would do would be, he was always giving either me or my mum stuff, and then he would take them away. So, and the worst thing for me was that he one time he gave me a present with a dog, a boxer dog. And I was so happy, because I never really had too many friends, just with the circumstances, and just being like a wee boy. And I loved this dog. I loved this dog. He was my only pal, really. And I got very attached to this dog. And then one day I was up the stairs and I heard him saying he's going to sell the dog. And just things like that. And I actually ran away. I ran away with the dog, which is pretty stupid. You're only like 7-year-old, 8-year-old, and you're running away. So I made a lot of sandwiches, and we were going to any place and every place. You never knew where you were going. And the dog ate all the sandwiches, left with never any food. So I had to go back. And it was pretty scary, but he actually hammered us when I got back. The police were involved and all that stuff, and I actually got hammered. And after a while, I didn't even feel it. It was the hurt of losing the dog. I knew I'd never see him again. The hurt of losing that dog was much worse than actually the beatings itself. But just things like that. But the things he done to my mum, like, it was always, he'd say, I'm not sure if he's my son. We need to go for blood tests. That went on for a while. he'd always say a few different girlfriends. I'd be up at their house. He'd actually, I'm not sure if it was kidnapping, but he would abduct you, and then he would take you to these strange women's houses, and obviously that would be torture for my mum because she never knew what it was. He'd get us for school, so he'd like abduct us for school, and this went on for quite a while. Went to a few different houses. But look, as I said, all these sort of things, it gives you character, if nothing else, and it makes you stronger.
Did you have brothers and sisters?
I had, I've got a sister, and my sister was
Older or
11
younger?
years older. 11 years older, Steve. So she was kind of when things came to like climax, which was when I was about 10-year-old. She was 21, and she'd had her 21st birthday. She'd actually had an engagement, and she was gone. She was hardly there, and I mean you couldn't blame her. I mean she was gone for early on, really, because she ended up going and staying with her future husband at their sort of family side, because their family was pretty stable, pretty solid. Whereas ours was chaos. So we never really seen much of her. She wasn't really much to do with her, and that was it. Yeah.
I mean, from your point of view, going to school, in those early days as a youngster, can you remember much about it? Was that, to you, did that feel like a bit of a break from, what was going on at home, or were you wise enough at that age to be concerned more about what was potentially happening with your mum back at home?
School for me was never great, Steve. It was I used to spend half the time looking out the window because I'd lost so much of school, particularly obviously primary school. I couldn't understand what the teacher was on about. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't dumb. I'd lost too much time at school. So the teachers, obviously, they were teaching another, 15 kids in the class or whatever. So they weren't really focusing on anybody that fell behind. So I spent half the time looking out the window. But I was good at a couple of things at school. I was good at PE, like that's in gym class. I was good at that. And I was also good at art. I was good at drawing. And I used to go into my NB world of imagination. And that was the thing even when we were at home and there was turmoil and brutal stuff going on in my life, I'd spend a lot of time drawing and, sketching and colouring in when I was a wee boy. But school wasn't for me. And I left school as soon as I could. I left school when I was just started second year, and I didn't go back, which is also in the book. And I had to do certain things to get money for me and my mum. So all I wanted to do was work. And that was it, yeah.
So the abuse that your dad was carrying out, you say physical, you say mental abuse. Tell us, if you can, just a little bit about the physical abuse. Was he violent towards you, or was it simply violence towards your mother?
No, he was violent. He was a violent guy. That's really good. He was violent towards my mum. I was into these crazy relationships, and my mum was a fairly fiery wee woman, and she never took a backward step either. But I was probably just some people are just not meant to be together, and I think that's probably what was with my mum and dad. But my mum was she was like a heart of gold. She'd give you your last two bob. I saw her do it when we had nothing. But my old man was just a violent guy in general, and I was there was no compromise. It was just like his way, or he just batter you. He just give you a bit of hiding, and it wasn't just me. It was my mum. My mum took the brunt of it. And then, as the years went on, I actually sort of tried to step there, and I used to say to myself, I hope he takes out his eyes, he uses his strength or whatever on me, as opposed to so he'll be tired from my mum. It was one of them, and that's just the way he's done it in the end up. And in the end up, I used to try and stand up to him, but I was pretty futile, to be honest with you. But if I could divert any of that kind of stuff going on there. But I tried a few times, a good few times. But it was the physical abuse. It was full on. It was full on physical abuse. It was punches and kicks. You know, I wasn't just a violent guy. Yeah, much else I can say.
Do you think was it driven by some kind of mental illness, or was he addicted to drink or drugs, or was it a bit of everything?
I think it was a bit of everything. Looking back, Steve, see when I went through all that stuff when I was in my mid-teens up to my mid-teens, I had to say to myself, you've got to stop thinking about this. You've got to live. You've got to get on with your life. You've got to be a better person. But I put that to bed. I put that away in the back of my mind for 30 odd years. And it was only once my mum died, I started thinking about it again. And the reason I started thinking about it again is because I thought to myself, gee, she had a crappy life, really. And she tried her best. And that was when I said to myself, because we're all over here in Australia, I said to myself, look, I want my kids to understand and my wife to understand what their dad is and what their husband is. Because I'm a totally different person to what I was back there. And they were away with me on that journey. So obviously, I wanted them to understand that life can get you down. And you've just got to keep going. You just, you get, at the time, one of my daughters was getting bullied at school, going through a bit of a hard time. And I thought, this is probably good that she thinking. So I wrote 30 pages, a quick 30 pages. I wrote it on night shift when I was building a bridge in Adelaide, and I gave it to them. And my wife read it. She went, "All the years I've been with you, you've never spoken about this." And I went, "Well, it's only 30 pages." But then that's how Annie's Boy started, with the 30 pages for my wife and kids. But yeah, I never spoke about it. I never thought about it all the years because I just didn't want to.
It came to a head for you as a 10-year-old after you witnessed your father holding a knife to Annie's throat. Yeah. You went on to testify against your own dad in court. Can you tell us how that came about and tell us a little bit about that incident?
Okay, so this was obviously going on and on. There's a couple of things I didn't mention about. I actually forgot. But he used to also the psychological torture was he'd ring the phone. You remember the old phones?
Yeah.
Ring, and he'd ring the phone, and you'd go and pick up the phone. He'd be heavy breathing on the phone, and things like in the middle of the night, things like that. But he was doing a lot of things to us in the house, banging on the door in the middle of the night, smashing the windows. It's terrifying. I was a nervous wreck, and my mum was fairly tough, but I was starting to affect her really badly. And I always remember I said to my mum one particular night, I said, "Look, is he going to kill us?" And my mum shook us. Well, she took us and she's never ever said that. And I went, okay, fair enough. I'm like 9-year-old or something at this time. And after things happened, and before I went to court, I'm sitting there and on the stairs listening to these police, and the police were doing nothing. I mean, the police were just giving a lip service half the time, and on some of the occasions they were actually making her feel that crap, that they were making her feel as if it was her fault. And I'd be listening to this, and I was smart enough to understand what was going on. And then the catalyst for me was when my mum said to the police, "I think he's going to kill her." And that's when I thought, I've witnessed what's happened here. I'm going to tell them, and they're going to listen, because I want this to stop. So even though I was only 10-year-old, I wasn't really 10-year-old in the head. I'd experienced that many bad things that my childhood was actually gone. I remember chucking my action men. I played with action men and all that stuff, and I remember chucking them because I thought, I'm not a kid anymore, And yeah, so that was what happened with there was as I said, it's not in the book, I suppose, but I watched them put a brick through the front living room window, and I seen him running along the road, and I just remember, I can still remember it now. I can remember the pee running through my leg. I peed in my pajamas. And I was so terrified because the last time he put the head of a sledgehammer through the same window, and I landed on my mum's chair. And if she wasn't in the kitchen making me cheese on toast, I would have cleaned her up pretty badly. I probably would have killed her. So I just thought back to that, what happened before. I ran down the stairs, there was silence, and I went there, and my mum was sitting up, kneeling on the carpet, like sobbing. And I thought, fuck this, And so when the police came, there was more lip service and all the rest of it, and we can't do anything unless you got a witness. And I stood up and says, I saw everything. That was my dad. I saw him. I remember how he, I remember it like it was, I remember how he runs. I know him, it was him. And then they must have got together and said, well, we've got a witness. He's only 10-year-old. We've got a witness. So that's how it came about. But it wasn't easy. And even up to then, they couldn't do much. I'd be going to school, be playing on the playground. He'd be sitting staring at me, watching me in the playground. It was all these things. But it's just, you say to yourself, how could the authorities at the time, they never done anything to help you. I was probably, Steve, being honest, it was probably going on right, left and centre. You just never knew what was going on behind closed doors. But I think it was going on. I think it was a generational thing. A lot of things were going on. But as I said, it was a bad time. There was a lot of unrest and people didn't have any money. They were hitting the drink. So I think there was a lot of crazy stuff going on, and they were probably overwhelmed with that. But I always remember one time, my mum was coming out of work. She worked in the Timex factory, making the watches. She worked there for 18 years, and I used to go down there. I wasn't allowed to go home. I had to go down and meet her at the factory and walk up the road with her. And my old man came at her with a knife, with a butcher's knife. And she'd had enough with that. She was actually broken. And there was people came out of the factory, and he scampered. We got on his van and left. And she obviously phoned the police, and the police came, but there was also the social worker came. And all she wanted to do was remove me from the situation, put me in a borstal, in a boys' home. And I'd seen my mum, she was just absolutely broken. All I wanted to do was just remove me from the situation. And God knows what would have happened if I ended up in a borstal. I probably wouldn't be sitting here now. But there was no help for that. That was pretty bad. I'm pretty sure it's a lot better now. I actually, I'm in and out with the boxing. I'm in and out with, underprivileged kids. And I've kind of came full circle, to be honest, and I love it. But you see all these things that are happening. But nowadays I've got more help. They seem to have more help than, with the violence and domestic violence in particular. So it's a great thing. So I'm happy to be involved with that stuff. How did
things progress for your mum and dad? As years went on, and how was your relationship with your dad, especially after, as you grew up to be a man?
There was no relationship. There was he came back. He went away for a while, and then he came back. And I always thought he'd come back. When I was, as I said, I lost my childhood. I started training. I've trained all my life, and it's just in me to train now. But I started training when I was about 11-year-old, and I always started training. I never told anybody. People just thought I wanted to be like Bruce Lee or something. But I didn't. I was training in case my old man came back, because I knew he'd come back at some point, and I thought, if he does come back, I'm going to turn here, go on, And I was mentally, I was much more resilient. I was mentally tough because, as I said, when I was peeing myself, peeing my pajamas, all that stuff was going on. I was a nervous wreck, and I said to myself, my mum would have chats with me and my mum. It's only me and her, so she would say, look, we've just got to get on with this guy. No, we didn't talk about it too much, but she used to say certain things to me that would spur us on and say, look, you've only got one life and you've got to live it. Just we've got to keep going, and that's what we've done. But it wasn't easy. But I never had any relationship with my dad. I wasn't a violent person whatsoever, but I hated bullies. And every time there was, like, as I said, there was gangs. I used to love ripping into the gang members because I always thought they were like bullies. And if anybody, God help any of them that came near me. And because there was someone in me, I used to just flip. And I was getting stronger. I was running, 5 miles every day. I was pretty strong, wee fella, and I was getting stronger as the years went on. And I just used to, if there was any bar, any trouble with my mates or anything like that, I'd wire right into them, I'd rip into them because all I saw was my old man and them, and it was never very pretty. But
you've got a big love for boxing. Where did that come from?
Well, my uncle Joe, he was a big influence in me when I was in. He's obviously in the book. He's a big influence in me. He was a boxer. There was a lot of boxing going on in Scotland and in the UK. It was a great era, was it? 70s and 80s and all that stuff. It was a brilliant era. And I used to watch Harry Carpenter, Red Scott Ridge on the telly. And at the time we had Jim Watt, Ken Buchanan. Before that, we had Frank Bruno. It was a brilliant time for the fighters. Nigel, then you got Nigel Benn. I loved the sport. I loved it. I didn't actually like getting punched in the nose, but I loved the training. The training side of it was, like, for me, it was the best thing ever, and it still is. Through my life, it's actually saved me a lot of the time on certain things. So, if you've had a bad day at work, I come in and do a few rounds on the bag, and you feel better. And it's better mentally and physically. You're much more switched on for your profession, for life, and for your wife and kids. So, I've never been a drinker. I had to drink when I was younger. Obviously, you go in the nightclubs and what have you, discos, I suppose you call them. But I've never been much of a drinker. So I've always trained, and I've always tried to look after myself, my body, my mind, and I still do it to this day. But the boxing side of things, I was actually just to get fit and strong, and I always used to idolise, Jim Watt, Barry McGuigan, John Conte, Harry boys, John H. Stracey, Harry boys, and since that I've met them all. So how good is that? But I've got a massive passion for boxing. Yeah, but sometimes it's a bit unhealthy, but I love it.
Nothing wrong with that. And I mean, you said you're into your training, etc. But you've also met some real legends of the fight game, and some of the photographs that you sent us over testament to that. I mean, from one of my favourite fighters, Mike Tyson, of course. You've met one of the more modern day heavyweights, Deontay Wilder, in the gym there. You've also met one of the greatest ever, in fact, the greatest ever, Floyd Mayweather. And going back in time a little bit here, cracking photograph again, two guys who I've met and promoted, Joe Bugner and Joe Fraser. So just tell us a little bit about what it's like to meet those kind of legends. I mean, I've done those nights for many, many years. Some of them I've met 2 or 3 times. But what was it like to meet some of those names? Any stories?
Well, it's a fair few stories. Some of the stories are actually unbelievable, but Aaron Pryor, I was trying to get. I wrote a couple of books on boxing's world champions, like their workout methods and their what they do on a day-to-day basis. So I'd done that years ago when it was not done. I think that you can get it now on Google or whatever, but in the days years ago, you couldn't get any of that stuff information. So I decided to write one book. I only wanted to make one book, and the publisher wanted to split it into 2, as they do. I wanted one cracking book, and I interviewed up to now. I've interviewed over 150 world champions, and I've trained with over 100 in the gym. And what I'd done was, Steve, I'd worked 2 and 3 jobs to get the money. I'd go off on the economy, cattle class and all the rest of it, and staying in some of the crappiest hotels all over the world just to get access to these boxers. So years ago, it was hard. When I first started, I got my first media credential just with pure bullshit at Madison Square Garden. So I went on the Madison Square Gardens tour, and I had in the toilet for about 2.5 hours. and I was just sitting on the seat there, and people came in and lifting my feet up, and the cleaners were coming and mopping, and I'd be in the cubicle. Am I all right, mate? Yeah, I'm all right. And I came out the toilet, and I went up to the desk. So I seen media people, and I seen a couple of boxers in the background, and I went up and says, "My name's Gary Todd. I should be on the list." And the lady goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not on the list." And I went, "I just came here for Sydney, Australia. I'm working for British Boxing." Just made it up. "I want to see the manager." So she says, "I see that guy with a red tie over there. Go and see him." So I went and explained. I said, "Look, I work for British Boxing, and I'm here I came all the way from Sydney, Australia. I live there and work there, and I write from there. And I'm here for the press conference." He gave us a press pass. I couldn't believe it. I was jumping about daft. And that was my first press pass, and that was for Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield at Madison Square Garden. So for then, in the days, you got on the system, and then it was Vegas. Then you were across the UK, so you were on the system, and then it gradually got easier and easier, and the doors opened. But when I got that, me being me, persevering, you probably know I'm pretty persistent. But through the years, I've been a pest, persistent. But nowadays, it's easy. Nowadays, I've got contacts and what have you, as you know, Steve. But years ago, it wasn't easy. And I still say that's my upbringing. I had to live. I wanted to persist in life. I wanted to be better in life. And I used to do a lot of things to get by, and I'm pretty resilient sort of fella. So that's actually helped me get me where I am in life. So I'm not saying I'm grateful for what happened in Annie's Boy, but I tell you, it does makes you stronger, I suppose.
Yeah, of course it does. Experiences make you stronger, Gary.
Yeah, 100%, Steve. But I just getting back to the boxing, some of these guys that I've met, like I actually had I'd consider it a magical time with Muhammad Ali, and that was just pure persistence. That was persistence, annoying the crap out of the bodyguard, and it took me nearly 2.5 days standing next to the bodyguard that was at the bottom of a lift. He had his own private lift. And the bodyguard, I think the bodyguard just got fed up looking at us in the end. And he said, "Look, I need 5 minutes." And I ended up getting 20 minutes with him, 25 minutes nearly with Muhammad Ali on the room on his own with no pressure, no rushing. He just said to me, he says, "Slow down, white boy." I was like an awe. I'm sitting next to Muhammad Ali, and he's saying to me, "Slow down, white boy. You don't know, there's only me and you here. We're not going any place. Got plenty of time." Yeah. But it was a brilliant experience. It was magical. But since that time, as I said, I've had some brilliant times in the gym. Funny times in the gym. Funny times you Mike Tyson. Weird times you Mike Tyson. Depends on what kind of mood he's in, I suppose. But I've had a few occasions with him through the years training. I've seen him knocking 7 sparring partners out one after the other in Las Vegas. I've seen him giggling like a baby. It just depends what Mike's Mike. Depends what mood he's in. But I've met the only person I've not met really in the boxing is Canelo Alvarez. I've not met him, but I've met every other one. There's no one, but even the old guys. I met Larry Holmes, Joe Frazier a few times, Ken Norton, met him a few times. I met at the Fabulous Four. I met my hero. My hero was always Marvin Hagler. Look, I was really happy I met him before he died. I met him well before he died. But a lot of good experiences. A lot of good experiences in the gym, and a few experiences outside the gym was pretty funny. I got Aaron Pryor, as I said. I was at his wedding, and this is the funny end because I was at the Hall of Fame and he got married at the Hall of Fame, and I was trying to get to him, and there was a lot of people and I couldn't get near him, so I went under this. I followed this trail of tables, so tables with white tablecloths on, and I just followed him. I'm sneaking through and I see his feet, And I'm going through on the grass on my hands and knees, and I popped my head up, and it was a wedding. And I never knew, so I went around all these tables, and I popped my head up, and I was actually at his wedding. And I had shorts and a pair of shorts and a t-shirt on, and they're all just looking at me. They're all like tuxedos and all that, and I'm standing there like a lemon. And but it was fine. I worked out okay, and I got an interview for the book, so that was good.
Fantastic,
So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
What made you move to Australia?
The move to Australia was really tough, but I was kind of, I never seen much of a future for us in Scotland. There wasn't any future for me, and I was starting to go down a wee bit of not the wrong track, but not the wrong people, because I was actually doing things outside. I had loads of different mates in different areas, and but there were certain things I was getting involved with a couple of guys, and I thought we were starting to get a bit excited about robbing trucks and things like that. And one of the stories is in Annie's Boy. That was quite funny. But if I would have got caught, I'd been going to jail. And that's where I was going. And there was never any violence or anything like that. But we'd done a few wee things we shouldn't have. And if I would have got caught, I would have took the brunt of it. And I didn't want to give my mum any heartache. She'd had enough heartache. And I always says to her, I'll never bring the police to the door, Mum. I might get up to a few bits and bobs, but I'll never bring the police to the door. I never did. And I was pretty chuffed about that, all things considered. But the reason I came to Australia is that there wasn't any, the unemployment was really bad. And in Dundee, it was terrible. And as I said, I never finished school, so I never had any qualifications or whatsoever. I never even got a leaving certificate. I just didn't go back. And so I wanted to get a job. I wanted to be my Uncle Joe was a private investigator. And I always fancied that. I always thought, this sounds great. And I helped him for a few years, doing bits and bobs, going to the post office and sitting in cars, watching people and things like that. And I thought, this is all right, I quite like this. And I idolised my Uncle Joe. He was like another Arthur Daly. He was always looking for the man, see him about a dog, one of them. And I liked that. And he was a big influence on me, but he put me straight, and he goes, look, son, you're pretty smart. You've got a lot of things going for you, but you're not using them. And I'm not gonna buy into that. It's you can do things. You could be good. You can do something with your life, but you're not going to do it here. And then my other uncle, I was in the TA, and the TA was pretty funny and all. Like, I just went in the TA for the fitness. I was doing a lot of running at the time, and I was doing 11 miles every night. And then one of my mates says, "This TA thing, you get all the Bergens on, and you go out running in the fields and up in the hills and all. It's great fun." And they give you like a wooden gun or something, and you get to carry on your shooting people. I said, "Oh, damn, I'll give that a go." But that wasn't for me either. It was too red, too many rules. And after a while, I thought it was about a waste of time, so I gave that up. But my other uncle was in paratroopers, and he was always saying to me, "Go in the paratroopers." He says, "That'll suit you." He says, "You'll get out of Dundee, you see a bit of the world." And then I was actually thinking about it. I really thinking about going on the paratroopers. And then my mate phoned us one time, and one Saturday afternoon, and he said, "You fancy getting out here?" And I went, Where am I going to go? And he goes, "Australia." And I said, "Let's go." And I'd only seen things on like Skippy and on the telly, on the TV program. So I'm thinking, and there used to be another thing about an Aborigine guy walking about or something it was called. I can't remember. It was Ernie Dingo. And I thought, I'm not sure I'll fit in there. Like, it's like kangaroos and, Aborigines wanting to be spears and that. How are we going to go there? And that's what you saw on the telly. But it's much, much different when I got there. Believe me, it was much different. But that's the reason I left. But it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, leaving my mum. I was actually heartbroken. And I couldn't have settled in Australia for a long time. A long time. Yeah. got in a bit of trouble in Australia, and that sort of that made us really grow up. Because I think I took it really bad being away from my mum. She was always there for us, and then all of a sudden she wasn't there, and you were left to fend for yourself in a strange place with a load of strange people, and yeah, it wasn't easy. But as I said, there was loads of people like me, loads of English guys, Scottish, a couple of Welsh guys, a few Geordies that we got Polly with, and I was like being in Benidorm 24/7. That's what it was like. But you had to go out for your work.
Yeah.
But I wasn't a big drinker, so I didn't like that. After a while I got fed up with it. I was saying, my God, I'm away from my family, and I'm just on the piss all the time. You know, I could do that in Dundee. But the big thing for me, the turning point for me was got in a wee bit of trouble, and I actually crap myself, and I ended up going on oil rigs. Somebody was looking after us. Somebody was looking after me. I went and got a job on oil rigs. I was on the oil rigs for 5 years, and you couldn't do anything. You were just working 17 hours a day. You could work longer if you wanted. And I eventually got made a boss, and that was my responsibility. And I was up for it. And then I went back on holiday to Scotland and I met my wife, and in the pub, funnily enough. And that was it. And here we are, nearly 30 years we are now. So she's from Dundee as well, but Jenny. So she's saved my life, actually.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
But behind every man is a great woman. That's what they say. You sent us this photograph, and this is something you carry around with you, Gary. Tell us a little bit about this and why you carry that around with you. Yeah,
that's that photograph. When I found that photograph, I actually found that on the internet. That's third level for the top. I lived in 15 levels up. That was me and my mum's safe haven. There was only one door, and my mum had like 3 chains on the door, a couple of locks. But that was, well, there was a few things happened there also. Obviously, it's in the Annie's boy, but that picture there means everything to me. Wherever I go in the world, working, I've got that framed, and I put it up in my office, and I look at it every day. And I've actually got it on my screensaver on my phone. Sounds daft, but the multi-stories in the scheme that I grew up in, they've been demolished. And I never knew they were demolished. And I remember I went back on holiday and I hired a car, and I drove up the road and I went, I think I'm lost. I've been away for a wee while, but what the hell? And they were gone. And I stopped the car, and I actually had a wee cry. You know what I mean? I meant that much to me, because I was just out of memories, and it just had been erased like that, gone. You know, like with that building not being there. It sounds daft, but through the years I've stayed in, I've been a lot of nice places, you know, beautiful places in the world. We work and we on holidays, and that place still got a hold on me, and I kind of understand it, but it's just got a massive hold on me. I could still. It was a terrible, crappy wee flat we had, me and my mum. It was a 2-bedroom, tiny wee kitchen. And it was just, but this is the memories. We laughed there. We done a fair bit of crying there. And there was a lot of love in that flat, I'll tell you. A lot of love. And it still gets me.
Yeah, I can imagine, mate. I can imagine. Your book is out there. I've put it up on the screen there, and the link is down below. Annie's Boy by Gary Todd. Make sure you buy a copy for this Christmas. You bumped into famous people with this book as well. Lots of people have enjoyed it, Gary.
Yeah, I've as I said to you before, I'm a pretty persistent sort of fella. So I've been, if I get a chance, if the door opens a wee bit, I kick the door in, and I've been trying to kick the door in with Annie's Boy. So I met Brian Cox a few weeks ago. So he's reading Annie's Boy. He said it was bloody brilliant, and that's good coming for him. I mean, he's a Dundee guy as well, but he's obviously, I think he's a huge star now. And that was a big thing for me. There's a couple of other people I've been reading that. Do you remember a guy called Gary Stretch?
Yeah, boxer.
Gary Stretch, boxer. So he's actually instrumental. I've actually wrote the screenplay, and me, I'd never done a screenplay before. I'm a construction guy, and he told me he read the 30 pages that I gave my wife and kids. He read it, and he was in tears, and I'd just finished training, covered in sweat, and my wife says to him, she goes, "There's a guy calling you from Hollywood, and he wants to talk to you." And I went, "This is a wind-up. This is obviously a wind-up." Anyway, it was Gary Stretch on the other end of the phone. And he says to me, "I've just read that story." He says, "You've got me in tears." And he says, "We need to make a movie on this. You have to make a movie." I went, I'm looking at my wife and I'm going, "What the fuck?" I'm going, "What the hell is he talking about?" And he goes, "We need to make a movie." He goes, "But there's only one person that can write the screenplay, and it's you, because you have to write it from the heart." I'm saying, "A screenplay? You've got the wrong man. I'm fine for you to find somebody to write the screenplay." He goes, "No, it's got to be you." So I actually wrote the screenplay. I taught myself how to do it, and I've wrote it, and it's been endorsed by a few people, and it's there. It's out and about, trying to get funding just now. So I actually wrote that before I wrote my book. I let my wife read the screenplay, and she says, "What the hell's going on with you? Like, where's this come from?" And she says, "Look, you've got the information, Gary. You've went to the trouble of doing it. You have to write the book." So that's what I've done. I really went serious on writing the book and locked myself away. And in the end, my wife, she thought I was going mental. She thought I was going off my head, because I'd be writing up there. I'd come out, I wouldn't eat. I'd be going training, play a bit of the boxing, come back, write again, sleep, and that's what I'd done until I finished it. But I'm really proud of it. I was very hard writing it, but as I said, there's a lot of funny stories. I'm not sure if you think it was funny, but people say it's funny. I tried to put a few stories in there that was a chronology. I didn't plan for it. I just went back to my earliest memory, and I went through, and as funny stories came into my head, I wrote them on a bit of paper, and then I obviously wrote them into the book. But there's a fair few funny stories. Some of the things I got up to just survived. It was, I thought it was quite funny.
At the end of the day, mate, we want people to buy the book, so we won't dip into that. But listen, it's no mean feat to write a book. They say there's a book in everybody, but it takes somebody to sit and actually take the dedication and time to do it. You've written the screenplay as well, and it comes from the heart, which you've said. So best of luck with that, mate. But if anybody wants to buy the book, the link is below. Annie's Boy, well worth a read, well worth spending your money on it. It's a good Christmas present for somebody if they're into the books as well, something a little bit different. And Gary, I just want to thank you for taking your time to come on the podcast, mate.
Steve, it's much appreciated. It was awfully nice talking to you.
And you, mate, keep in touch, and I'll give this a push out as well. So hopefully you'll get a few Christmas orders. I'll let you get back to bed in Australia, mate. Take care.
I'm off to work now.
Off to work. Take care, mate. God bless you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, get off. Okay.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, starting with Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals. You can find them at 304 Old Durham Road on Gateshead. Telephone 0191 478 273, or email Darren at darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk, or the website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. Their website is thegohd.com. And thanks to 3 Property Investments, who specialize in sourcing investment properties for their clients who are looking to invest in the Northeast. They offer a full in-house service from sourcing the deals to managing the properties for you. They've done over 100 plus deals in the past 12 months for clients all over the UK. Give the guys a follow on Instagram, matty.patter_northeastproperty and phil.reed_northeastproperty, or email phil@freeproperty.co.uk should you be interested in getting a good property deal. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can order them by going to the website, mrvickys.co.uk, or by calling 01768 210 102. Thanks to the guys at Blowhole Brewery. You can find them at blowholebrewery.co.uk. Got a vast range of beers. They're a new brewery company, and their cans are suitably addressed, like the Geordie Juice here, in the strips of Newcastle United from the 90s. Big thank you to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things, and to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website. If you want to subscribe, then hit the subscription button. If you want to hit the likes, then hit the thumb up, and please share to your social media. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify, and the rest goes up 24 hours after the show has finished. If you want to join, well, you can click join underneath the video and become a member for a small fee. If you want to pay the £25 fee and get a cup, a pen, a scarf, a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw, then go to the website, NUFCmatters.com, and click membership, or use your smartphone on the QR code, which will take you straight there. We also give you a free car sticker. If you're a subscriber, simply email john@nufcmatters.com to claim your free car window sticker today. We also support the food bank on here. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the matchday bucket and make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. We still do a lot of events in and around the region. If you want to see Super Mac, pre-match and after-match, you can go to the Dog and Parrot in Newcastle and hear Malcolm give his views on the game and listen to what he has to say about his career as well. Always a great afternoon. Kids are welcome. Good food, good beer. And get yourself into Pumphrey's. You can always see John Anderson and John Gibson in there pre-match on the Cloth Market in Newcastle. A couple of events coming up in 2023, an evening with Peter Beardsley, Friday the 10th of February at St Dom's Catholic Club. You can get the tickets direct from the venue. And Peter Beardsley is also at the Tyneside Irish Centre on Friday, February the 17th. Tickets available from Woucher for that one. Get yourself on a Woucher, make a cracking Christmas present for any Newcastle fan. Also, an evening with Rob Lee, Lee Clark and John Beresford, Friday the 2nd of June, 2023 at the Grand Hotel in Gosforth. Tickets for that are available from www.heelandtour.uk/events. And if you fancy a Christmas jumper, get the Bruno Christmas jumper from NUFCmatters.com.